Hello, Srikanth sir. Hello, everyone, and I welcome you to this special webinar. I'm Aparna Kachru, and I'm a communications and behavioral trainer with Prime Talent. Prime Talent Limited was incorporated in 2016 in the heart of London to address the growing challenges in the talent supply chain. It aims to create a strong pipeline of talent to ensure that the workforce of United Kingdom has the right skills for the current and the future industrial cycles. We are into talent solutions, education, and skill building, as well as digital services. Now, the agenda or the topic of today's webinar is innovative solutions to bridging talent shortage. But the question arises, why this topic? Talent hiring and retention continues to be a critical pain point for industries globally. While it cannot be denied that the increased digitization of the workplace has ushered in a lot of opportunities for progress, but at the same time, we need to remember that it is becoming a challenge for the organizations to employ and reserve the workforce, which is essentially equipped to embrace new trends, technology to operate through hands-on skills. Uh, so, in order to understand and address these issues, we have today with us Mr. Srikanth N R. He's our expert. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the webinar. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Just a little brief about Mr. Srikanth for the audience. He's a senior leader in human resources with more than 25 years of experience with global organizations in technology and consulting, as well as progressive leadership experience in managing and scaling transformative work. He has worked with one of the best organizations of the world, including IBM, Infosys, and most recently with Accenture. Before we proceed to the actual content of the webinar, I just wanted to let you all know, to let or whoever has joined this webinar know that we'll be having a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, wherein you can ask questions related to whatever we discussed today in this webinar. So I think without any further ado, let's start with the content. Okay. So, sir, I want to start with a very important topic. It might seem basic, but I think it's very critical. That is, what are the different organic and inorganic growth strategies for organizations? So, essentially, what I and so just before we proceed, I hope I did justice to your introduction. And if I missed anything, can you please go ahead and introduce yourself? I'm sure something.
That's fine. As you mentioned, I come with about 25 plus years of experience in the IT services consulting industry, primarily in various roles in HR, which is kind of my career growth has been alongside with the services industry growth, so to say. I benefited the max from that. Along the way has been a lot of learning, many of us that we had embarked on. So I was privileged enough to be working with the founding team at Infosys when we were growing in the early years in the late 90s, so to say. Similarly, to work with the senior leadership at IBM or at Accenture on the various transformative initiatives that have been there. I believe these things have actually helped me arrive at a certain amount of knowledge that I need to share with people. That's how I see it. And this experience has definitely changed the way in which the industry has been progressing. So coming to the question in terms of...
So before we proceed, I just have a very quick question. It's more like a doubt. When you say transformative work, can you shed some light on what exactly is this transformative work? Is it in the sort of the human resources aspect or the technology aspect or a culmination of both? If you can just explain it for the audience and also for myself.
Okay, let me try and put this. As we keep talking about it, a lot and every industry is becoming a technology-driven industry, or technology is
True.
at the intersection of any industry that is poised to disrupt the way in which we have done things so far. I
Hmm.
believe that today is the slowest day of the future. So if we think
Wow.
we are in a hustle and bustle amidst all those things, today is the slowest day. Gear up for the day, tomorrow's to come. In that kind of a context, when you're talking about technology being at the intersection of every business, uh, it is imperative to understand that more and more work is becoming talent-led and the industries are becoming knowledge intensive,
Hmm.
right? Uh, a simple uh, Dunzo, which is a delivery organization in India,
Hmm.
uh, probably is delivering goods, picking up goods from one place and doing a door-to-door delivery. But
Correct.
there's a whole engine that's running behind that in terms of how do you optimize the supply chain route of this individual delivery person. Similarly, in
Hmm.
the UK, or take any example of Uber or Airbnb, there is a huge amount
Swiggy,
that is
Zomato, Swiggy.
everything that is happening around. Therefore, you're talking about this is all talent led
Hmm.
and it is knowledge intensive. So we cannot wish away that part of it. So any transformation going forward and so far always hinges on a culture transformation, a talent mindset transformation, and also the kind of skills transformation. Skills would come in the last, but there's the system, there's the operating model and the
Hmm.
operating culture. All these things
Hmm.
have to change in step. So a transformative experience no longer is going to be about systems alone. A transformative experience is all about getting things in place and taking the talent into the future.
So if I have to, I mean, the way I understand it, it's almost like the very model of modern day startups, wherein everything is app based, everything is technology, and then they are trying to solve our everyday problems, say a Swiggy or a Dunzo or an Uber, like you said. So now they have groceries as well. So they are sort of catering to everyday issues using the best talent along with amazing technology. Is that right?
Right. The best in class talent is going to be building out two kinds of
Hmm.
experiences. One is the technology experience, and the other
Hmm.
one is the user experience. There is no
Hmm.
wire media in between. There's a technology that is directly interfacing with the user, and
Hmm.
therefore these experiences count more progressive organizations. And the organizations are no longer talking about huge teams that are there, but quick, smaller teams, agile, that are going to come together, deliver multifaceted, multidisciplinary teams that are going to come together, deliver the value, and move on in the next area. So
Hmm.
that's the kind of talent landscape that we are seeing. In this kind of a context, there are two things that happen: the speed at which you need talent and the scale at which you need talent. For these, you cannot go back to your traditional mode of looking at hiring people, training them. Those are required. They are going to be
Hmm.
there. But more and more, you're going to have to build strategies of buy, borrow, build, whatever it is. Are you going to be looking at competition? Are you going to start working directly with your consumer or your
Hmm.
customer of service and say that you're going to be looking at providing some kind of a solution to the industry? Case
Okay.
in point could be during the pandemic time, there are a lot of organizations that were letting go of people, right?
Right. A lot.
At
Yeah,
the
that's
same
true.
time, there was also a huge need for getting people with some kind of an experience to run huge call centers for healthcare programs,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
Who better than people who have spent years in the hospitality industry could be someone who has the patience and the ability to come together and deliver that. While the hospitality industry, if you took any of the hotels that you knew, were actually
Hmm.
cutting down because they did not have business to deliver or require these people to be there. So
Yeah,
that's a kind
because
of a
there was no
novel
footfall. Yeah, correct.
yeah, that was kind of a novel solution to be coming out with. So you're not
Hmm.
looking at this as talent that is not there. Talent is there, it's
Hmm.
available, and it is being repurposed for a short duration. And
Hmm.
once you're over with that cycle, people can go back into it wherever they had come in from. That's a kind of a novel model to begin with when we talk about organic versus inorganic. Organic would have been had 10,000
Hmm.
people, put them through a training program, and make sure that they are
Hmm.
doing this. That would have had its own cycle time, right? You would have played around on the operational efficiencies.
So are you saying is that how organizations decide whether to grow organically or inorganically?
And that was an example of how you should use the opportunity to convert an adversity into an opportunity, right? So you have
Right,
to look
right.
at that and say that this is where the strategy goes into saying, I am not going to buy this talent. I'm not going to build this talent. I'm just going to borrow
Hmm.
that, which is a 60-70% fit to my current expectation. And I'll be able to manage that over a period in time versus having to put everything on the back burner.
So essentially, efficient utilization of resources at hand.
Yes. And
Okay,
these are
okay.
not resources who are from your own industry. They are from a different industry. They are being
Hmm.
brought in and repurposed for this purpose.
So like gig workers.
I wouldn't say gig workers are people who are
Hmm.
going to be on a platform or independent of any of these things. But
Hmm.
here is an opportunity of skilled people in
Hmm.
customer service,
Right.
albeit in a physical environment,
Hmm.
who knew the nuances of what customer experiences meant, being taken in to manage a call center and ensure that the work gets done, right? And
All
that
right.
meant
All
that there
right.
was enough and more ability to get people employed and
Hmm.
even during the downturn.
Okay. And what are the pros or cons of each strategy? The organic and the inorganic growth strategy.
Uh, First and foremost, when you talk about organic growth, the strategy is it gives you the ability to build bespoke talent the way you want and how you want at the pace in which you want to do that.
Hmm.
And therefore, the cultural integration becomes very, very seamless. You put them through a process and they are going through that.
Mm-hmm.
When you when you're that is building and when you're buying talent, you are inheriting a lot of so-called knowledge that may be redundant in your organization or
Hmm.
it may not be relevant to your organization. When you
All right.
borrow, once again, knowledge may be relevant, but the practices may be irrelevant to your organization. So there's always this trade-off between what is it that I need at this point in time versus
Hmm.
what is it that I need to build out for a long-term future. So the
Hmm.
more you think about investing in talent, you're going to be investing in the talent of tomorrow. So things that you
Hmm.
need for a scale to do today and to catch up on coming up to today can be an opportunity to build, buy or borrow rather than build.
Hmm. Um, Further, does the size of a company in some way a certain or decide what strategy they should employ or embrace? And if yes, how?
It does matter because in a large organization, there are people who are aspiring for newer roles and newer jobs at all point in time. So it
Hmm.
would be completely amiss to say, I'm going to get expertise only from outside. If you do
Hmm.
not build your own expertise at scale, you are lost in the race. So that's a size does matter. But on the other hand, if it's a
Hmm.
smaller organization with where the size really matters, it it's also the speed and turnaround time that matters. At that point, you should possibly be looking at whether it is necessary to build, given an environment like today where We're talking about the great resignation saga globally,
Right.
where everybody is talking about it. Do you really have the ability to go about building an organization where uncertainty of talent attraction is high and onboarding is pretty much low in terms of what the opportunities are offering today? So in
Hmm.
that kind of a context, a smaller organization or a medium-sized organization probably has to take a quick decision of saying, what are the other strategies that are available? A gig workforce is definitely
Hmm.
an opportunity, provided they
Hmm.
have the ability to control and engage with the person who's on the platform of gig workforce,
Hmm.
and also measure and monitor the work.
So, can an example of, say, again, these food delivery apps hiring delivery boys on a contractual basis, and they're not really like on the role on the company role, right? So, is this what you're mainly addressing right now? Like
Let's
they've been smart enough to like pick these people up, and then they don't have to be. They call them partners, but essentially they are just delivering food for them, and they are on contractual basis. Is that right?
That could be one of it, but it need not
Hmm.
be the whole of it. Let's say typically in the US you have the Black Thursday sale, the or in India you
Black
have
Friday,
the
Black
Black Friday,
Friday.
and in India
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have the Great Indian Sale, and
Right.
you know that during this point in time your sales is going to be high, therefore your delivery has
Totally.
to be on time. So you kind of build your contingent workforce keeping in mind this, and
All
and
right. Okay.
and you know these are planned events per se, but even in an event of unplanned activity, how do you
Hmm.
actually crowdsource people to come together to deliver solutions?
Okay. Now I get it. Yeah.
That
So
the
these
gig
events, yeah, they
workforce
require a lot of
versus,
people. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. And so, as you rightly said, and also, I mean, we cannot really escape technology in today's day and age. I mean, you hate it or love it, technology has become our life. So, this brings me to our next topic, that is advancement of technology in recruitment, and specifically artificial intelligence and machine learning. So, how do you think these advancements in technology are really influencing the recruitment process or decisions of the organizations? And if you can be a little bit specific about how AI and ML are used in the recruitment process.
Let's begin with what is AI. The way we all
Hmm.
understand artificial intelligence is a chatbot that is there in front of you, which is chatting, right?
Hmm.
I would go about and say AI is the UI for data.
Hmm.
AI is the user interface that you have developed
For
for data,
data.
which is
Hmm.
large and complex data, which is being analyzed in a fraction of a second and
Hmm.
presenting you with information. Now, data is provided, data, the way you ask questions, the answer will come to you. That is
Hmm.
the
Right.
that's the best part of data. And that's how the AI machines are trained. The chatbots are
Hmm.
trained. Now, how do you train them? What is the logic you use for that is absolutely the algorithms or the machine learning algorithms that you have written. So
Right.
the context is therefore looks at the probability of an event happening multiple times under the same circumstance and other thing.
Right.
The funny part about data is if you're it gives you an answer, but
Hmm.
it needs your intelligence to interpret the answer.
Okay. Interesting.
Let's say we have a simple database today that says number of people infected with the COVID virus, whatever
Hmm.
variant, not complicated for sake of it, and
Right.
what has been the recovery, how many people are continuing to fall sick, how many of them have been vaccinated, this is a simple table that you have. Now you can ask this question, have has the number of people infected by COVID-19 virus come down in the last 6 months.
Right.
So it will give you a data that says in the last 6 months, what is it that has happened? Does it mean that there are more number of people getting infected or less number of people infected? So you get
Hmm.
data and you probably get it in a way in which you can read it. So that does not give you any inference around it.
Hmm.
What has been the recovery of as period of people who have been vaccinated, double vaccinated, and the booster dose in the last 6 months?
Hmm.
That tells you the efficiency and the efficacy of the medication that you have identified.
Hmm.
The
Right.
data is the same. The data set is the
Hmm.
same. So this is where you have to learn to use data and the AI or ML algorithms more efficiently and
Hmm.
more intelligently. The
Hmm.
more we talk about AI, people are
Hmm.
worried because the AI machines are trained by people who are experts who have used intelligence to recruit, and therefore it can bring in a certain kind of a bias,
Okay.
right? So
So you mean like preference for a certain race
it
or
could be
gender
anything.
or
It
okay,
could be
okay.
anything, right? End of the day, if I'm training you how to run a marathon,
Hmm.
and I myself do not know how I have not been trained adequately or expertly, then
Hmm.
I'm going to teach you the nuances that I know. You know certain things, and therefore you're going to assimilate all that knowledge and come back into it.
Hmm.
That is the flip
Correct.
side of AI. The best thing
Hmm.
about AI is that it sifts through voluminous data to come down to, it reduces your time to discover a solution or to a problem.
Okay.
So in places where you were sifting through, let's say, a
Hmm.
hundred resumes on the web through some job portal,
Hmm.
using an AI algorithm, you probably are going to come back to saying that these are the three people who are the best suited for your job. So your effort is about only three, not about the other 97. It does not say the
Hmm.
other 97 are not required for your organization, but the other
Hmm.
97 may be better suited for other kinds of jobs,
Jobs. Okay. So the
right?
fit is not there. Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Right.
that eliminates a lot of manual work that would
True.
that does not require you to apply extreme intelligence in selecting the candidate. Where,
Hmm.
therefore, the role of a recruiter changes from that of being somebody looking at a CV
Hmm.
resume on the job portal and asking basic questions to evaluate the person to
Hmm.
somebody who's a kind of a candidate experience or a talent and a magnet, so to say,
Hmm.
candidate
Hmm.
experience manager, where you have to sell career opportunities, where you have to sell organizational go- uh, goals rather than evaluate just on skills. So that
Hmm.
what technology can do. It can reduce the time or the distance between an organization's requirement and the apt candidate versus what was being done earlier.
Uh, okay. And but you say that it also comes along with the flip side that is the biases,
Yes, you
right?
need to be aware of that and ensure that you do not allow that to be. So you cannot go blindly with what the machine throws, not it, but
Right.
you should be able to, end of the day, you call it artificial intelligence for a particular
For a
thing.
reason. Exactly. Yeah, I was
You
thinking the
have your
same. Yeah. Yeah.
native intelligence, which you need to apply. That's the difference between a machine that becomes a manager and a human who can be a leader.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. Right. And so I wanted to learn from you or get your insight about. Do you think the role of tech has changed, evolved, or increased in the post-COVID COVID scenario?
Uh, I would say the tech, this is a favorite expression that once I used with a very senior colleague of mine in Accenture. I think the
Hmm.
bar has shifted. Uh,
Okay.
Technology has become boundaryless. Uh,
I agree with that. With the
yeah,
metaverse and everything
yeah,
becoming kind of
it,
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
It is becoming agile, where
Hmm.
therefore it is not taking agile and adaptable. It
Hmm.
adapts to any situation, and it has actually become radically human. You're not building technology today that does not impact the human uh, interfaces. You are building technology that is augmenting a lot of human interface and minimizing the of effort that is going in. So technology has actually become radically human.
So
Just
would you
imagine,
say, I'm sorry to interrupt you. So would you say an Alexa would be a good example?
and Alexa is a response mechanism. Alexa is a good one. Alexa, Siri, OK, Google.
Yeah, Alexa
These are,
Siri, yeah, the
they're
kind,
all
yeah.
in that bucket. But even otherwise, look at it, even a simple
Hmm.
uh, app is giving you suggestions that are intuitive. If you were
Very intuitive.
somebody,
True.
yeah, 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 every Friday evening, if you had the habit of taking a Uber at 5 o'clock and going to a particular watering hole, it does show up on your phone saying, "Would you like me to book a Uber?" Right?
Yes.
And that's kind of intuitive, and not just intuitive, it is basically how you want to harness it for human utilization. So
Hmm.
the person using who's on the other side of the phone is not a technocrat, is somebody who
Hmm.
is able to look at it and say, appreciate what technology can give to you. So it is
Hmm.
radically human, as I would say. The more we talk about robots in the industrial age, the
Hmm.
more we talk about robots replacing people from doing repetitive manual work, it increases the efficiency of the human performance.
I completely agree with you. In fact, the other day I was having this conversation with my husband about how these apps really sort of know your pulse now. They'll send you random messages like, "Oh, it's Saturday. Don't you want to order this thing? Don't you want to order chole bhature and everything?" And I was reading this article about a popular YouTuber, and he said that it's almost as if these apps are flirting with me. It was funny, but it's true because they're always there. They're always like they're on their feet. They'll keep messaging you and with these quirky one-liners and the funny, like puns and everything. So I agree with you. It's totally like it's sort of like that the technology is humanizing. I mean, it's
Yes.
almost yeah. You don't sort of sometimes miss a friend if you get onto these apps.
So if you really apply that in the context of talent, now
Hmm.
look at it, uh, some of these chatbots, and we have
Hmm.
actually had an opportunity to build one in my career some years back,
Hmm.
is to be the first line of response for all kinds of queries and questions that would come to a HR partner or a talent acquisition leader.
All right.
Simple things like, what is a status of my resume referral, or a
Status
candidate
of the
reaching out
application.
to see
Hmm.
where is it that I am. So these are things you do not have to spend time to answer, but these are
Hmm.
machine written algorithms that are sending out messages on a regular basis saying your candidature has moved from point A to B and B to C with no
Hmm.
human interference or anything. So that's something that
Hmm.
you extend it into the context of an organization. It's a friend who's available for you to say, okay, can you start looking at whose calendar? This is my team. Tell me
Hmm.
who are the 5 people whose calendar is free for this meeting and just fix this meeting.
Right. Right. Right.
You don't need a secretary or an assistant who is sitting there to do that. This is the role of
Hmm.
that is taken away. The secretary or the assistant that you are engaged with
Hmm.
probably can do something much more cerebral than to manage this for you.
Absolutely. 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 Right.
So
Right.
that's a second kind. And imagine in the last 2 years, there were a lot of people who have gone through a lot of personal trauma and isolation for various reasons, including the pandemic, and
Hmm.
they all needed a friend. And this is a phone a friend kind of a concept
Kind
where
of a situation. True.
a lot of well-being apps came into use. And
Hmm.
that is
Like
actually
mental health and everything.
mental health,
Yeah.
mindfulness. Those are things that are
Mindfulness. Yeah.
there. And coming back once again to all these things are changing the way in which a talent is approaching an organization.
Hmm.
Coming back to our main point is that these are things that are impacting me in my personal life. And how is it that in this work life, you're going to help me or support me with this kind of an environment?
Hmm.
So the role of talent acquisition is no longer about pipeline management or sourcing and managing CVs. It is
Hmm.
about talking to people about holistic career opportunities and a holistic
Right.
life for you when you join my organization.
Hmm. A long term, very symbiotic kind of a synergy going on there. Yeah, I agree with you.
Establish the purpose.
Right. So next I want to talk about another important aspect of recruitment, and nowadays a lot of buzz is going around it. It is training-led recruitment. So I want to learn from you, know from you, what exactly is training-led recruitment, and what would be its benefits for, say, a fresher or even for a working professional?
Okay, as I said, today is the slowest day of the future.
Hmm,
So whatever I have learned so far probably has brought me this far, but may not take me any
correct.
further.
Hmm,
Continuous learning and the future belongs to
evolving.
people who have a very high learning quotient, so to say,
Hmm,
who are
hmm,
adapted, absorbing new skills as and when required.
hmm.
Uh, and this is where the whole thing is moving into. If the technologies that we are talking about today have not been there 10 years ago,
Hmm.
how do you expect to have people with 5 years experience to be delivering the work,
Read.
right? And therefore, you need to start looking at training. I won't use the term training because I train my dog and he responds well. You train
What?
animals.
So what word
You,
should we use? Excuse
the
me, just a
humans
second.
evolve when they acquire knowledge. They
So is
learn,
development a better term?
learn. They learn newer concepts.
Okay. Okay.
They learn to apply the knowledge,
Hmm.
right? And so this is just an aside, right? You just have to apply. The more we talk about learning, then it
Hmm.
is not about initiative that is driven by an organization. Learning has to
Right.
be internalized, and it's a criterion as we look at it when we go forward. And therefore, learning is continuous. Right. 5 years back, if I remember, 5, 6 years back at the World Economic Forum, everybody made a commitment. All the big names made a commitment that they will invest significantly in skilling people, upskilling, and cross-skilling people.
Hmm.
We need to understand two things. Uh, in the last 100 years, Archana, the
It's
population,
Aparna. Sorry about that.
sorry,
It's okay. It's okay.
in the last 100 years, the population, the human on planet Earth has gone up, right? Uh, significantly. The unemployment rates are also in either under control or reasonably managed.
Hmm.
We are not talking about economics or anything around.
Hmm.
While the amount of money that was there 100 years back has just the same amount of money is there, but the value of money has changed.
Change. Correct.
The input for labor was different, and the cost of acquiring that labor was different 100 years back, and today it is different.
Hmm.
Why I'm bringing all these things is that when we talk about uh, learning for doing the same work at some point in time, the machines are going to take it off from you. These are routine, ritualistic activities that are reflex based, which the
Hmm.
machine took over. That was the industrial revolution, so to start with. Then
Right.
came the data revolution, where you started to build systems, huge systems to capture data so that you could start learning what is happening and how do you want to build it. The digital era was a
Right.
very short blink of an eye. It is past. You're now living in the post-digital era where we
Hmm.
are talking about voluminous data that has been consciously captured and data that is unconsciously being tracked
Hmm.
are all being used for the betterment of solutions. Right.
Right.
I'm not going to say complicated with anything else. There are
Hmm.
rules, regulations, GDPR, and the rest of it, privacy.
Hmm.
It is all there, right? How do we want to harness all of these things into our learning experiences as we go forward is
Hmm.
also going to be determinant of who are the people who will have the kind of roles and jobs in the future, right?
So,
So
can we say that there is a certain demand for some skills which are, like you rightly said, ever evolving, that we sort of need to master or like develop in ourselves so that the recruitment is more efficient, and also the workforce is more effective. Did I get that right?
yes,
Okay, okay. And I have a very specific question for you. I apologize. I think we have an electricity issue. Oh, it's back. Okay. So, how how can learners or job seekers get sort of like a boost in their career if they're going for a job after training, like say AWS restart training or something like that? Like, how strong is the impact and how much can they expect to grow when it comes to sort of a job change or a upgrade or something like that?
knowledge never goes wasted, right?
Hmm.
You need to know that there are two things. This is what I've learned, and I've been told by people who mentored me, is that if you are going to be dependent on your organization to train you, the organization is going to train you
Hmm.
on jobs that they believe that is going to be beneficial for them, not to blame
Correct.
an organization, right? And therefore, you will be part of a brigade of people who are delivering the work that has to be delivered for the organization. Knowledge
Hmm.
acquisition is a personal commitment that you will make, investment
Hmm.
that you will have to make. It's
Hmm.
as simple as this. Every one of us need to invest at least
In ourselves.
once in 2 years, you have to invest a month's salary, whatever be that, in acquiring a new skill and
Hmm.
being able to leverage that skill,
Right. Right.
acquire and apply that skill,
Hmm.
whether it is AWS technical skill or a behavioral skill or a
Hmm.
leadership skill that you want to acquire and finesse with you. Second thing,
Correct.
in terms of what I would like to differentiate is technical skills are going to be obsolete. The obsolescence of a technical skill is more quicker than what I would call the behavioral skills or leadership
Because
traits.
it's changing very fast. It's developing very fast, right?
One, it is. Two,
Hmm.
it is a competitive landscape, and the more I can commoditize a skill, the
Hmm.
more I can get there. So your advantage of picking up a skill has to be way ahead of the rest. And that's when you will have a head
Okay.
start on your career.
Hmm. I
On the
get
other
that. I
hand,
get that.
if you get into it after everybody has, then you are in a commodity race where your throughput is as good as anybody else.
And probably it's like too little, too late. You're so like when it's getting almost not
Yes,
redundant per se, but like and something else has come up and then you're joining the bandwagon. It's too late for you.
it too little
But
too late is the right term.
right. And so you really think that people must, and like you rightly said, invest a month's salary in a couple of years for skill building. So you think that this training is I mean, learning any new skill is very, very important, especially if you want to grow in your career, whether it's any career. Is that right? Am I right to
Yeah,
understand that?
it is.
Hmm.
Even if, let's not mess around. If I stop learning, I probably
Hmm.
will. It's more today that if I stop learning about what's happening around, I become
Hmm.
irrelevant faster than what it was in my parents' generation.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
You're
the
right.
need to keep yourself abreast with technology and technology solutions, and technology has
Hmm.
become much more simpler, right? Radically,
Simpler. Very simple.
and therefore your ability to acquire that knowledge is going to be there. Second
Hmm.
thing, technology has enabled learning to become a much more uh, personalized.
Hmm.
Learn anytime, learn anywhere, learn how many ever times that you want to.
Hmm.
You are no longer going to be compelled because you have to be in the classroom at 9 a.m. and be
Yeah.
in a physical location. To reach that 9 a.m. classroom, you have to be having a 2-hour journey. And by the time you reach your class, your day is already about 3-4 hours old, and your mind is no longer fresh.
Yeah, I mean, like with online classes, with YouTube, these Unacademy, EdTech, and everything, you can learn anytime. I think there's no longer an excuse, right?
You
That
there
oh,
are
I don't have time, I don't have this, da 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 da.
So there are many of us
Yeah.
who probably are running or walking in the day or evening, listening to a podcast,
I am the biggest podcast obsessed person, like every day.
right? And so when you
Yeah,
look at that learning is seamless. It
hmm,
is gone once again boundaryless, and you can
yeah.
actually pick up a subject of interest. You don't need to necessarily uh, go through a whole textbook to understand. It's got its flip side.
Hmm,
I do
hmm,
know some people who say what can be Google need not be learned, but
hmm.
that's the world that we are in, where your knowledge
Incorrect.
is very precise and it is definitively useful.
Excellent. So now let's talk about a topic about which I don't have almost, I mean, I have zero idea about this. Let's be honest here. This is workforce analytics. I mean, I understand it. I Googled it, but I want to learn from the expert. So, what exactly is this workforce analytics? And then, um, what is its importance for businesses these days?
Uh, put very simply, I think when we talk about the workforce and performance of of a
Hmm.
person at the workplace,
Hmm.
performance of the individual is always contrasted against somebody else who is there in role, who was in role, and
Hmm.
it's a yardstick. And that yardstick becomes a
Hmm.
subjective measure. And that subjective measure
Okay.
is influenced by the person who is measuring.
Hmm.
The yardstick is therefore, it's like in every family, the father has a favorite and the mother has a favorite.
Hmm.
And even if it's the single child, the dog is the favorite. So,
But parents never accept that they have favorites, although I'm 100% sure they have favorites.
yeah. So if not any of it, if you were born and brought up in a typical Indian family, you know the neighbor's kid is always the yardstick.
Sharma
Right?
ji ka ladka.
Exactly. So that kind of a yardstick has always influenced decisions in the workplace,
Hmm.
whether it is about, so this is, and therefore you started to try and quantify work that was happening.
Hmm.
Quantification led to once again people saying that that was a very mathematical model which did not apply any intelligence around what was being
Hmm.
done. So when you talk about productivity, how many parts can you make, how many, it was a very industrial concept that you had applied into. Or
Hmm.
if you were a manual laborer, what was the effort? It measured the effort to the output. So the
Hmm.
impact of the output was never measured,
Hmm.
right? In the industrial age, that was good. But as we moved into the data building or the computer age of the computers, that started to be questioned. So you said, okay, you're writing the same program that I am writing for another client, but you're doing something. You're able to deliver this flawlessly in X time. And I am doing it Y time. Now,
Hmm.
is X and Y very different? Yes, and therefore the impact was felt. So once again,
Hmm.
there was a degree of subjectivity that was being established in terms of it. And the subjectivity came out of comparison. What
Right.
workforce analytics does is it gives a person, the manager or the leader, a 360 view of the employee and his or her skills that they bring to the job. And where exactly can you use them for what kind of assignments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Simple automation of your call center calls will probably tell you in terms of who is the person who is able to close maximum number of calls
Mm-hmm.
with high degree of customer satisfaction. The
Satisfaction rate.
NPS is highest for that person,
Hmm.
and probably use that person to train the rest of them.
Hmm.
And that's one kind of a workforce analytics that you can think about it. The second one is that performance management and performance evaluation has always been a subjective evolution. How do
Hmm.
you reduce the degree of subjectivity is through data. I,
Hmm.
I, I I believe you have to learn to deal with emotions and but
Right.
decide with data.
Okay.
The more you decide with data, you're closer to truth and you're able to manage that with fairness. It need not be favorable. It will be a fair assessment.
So
And
you're
there,
saying that the objectivity level rises a lot
yes, I won't
because
say
you're not.
objectivity
Huh.
raises,
Hmm.
subjectivity comes down,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
right? The degree of
All right.
subjectivity comes down. So that is how you need to look at it in terms of what workforce analytics can do. And this is just, we are just grabbing the,
Mm-hmm.
at the scratching at the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of human potential to be unveiled, and I believe that the 2030s and the 40s, if some of us live to see that, is
Hmm.
the era where the human potential is going to be exponentially
Hmm.
tapped into. And that is the way in which you're going to be preparing this next 8, 10 years of this decade in delivering value to whatever the organization that you're working with.
You
I believe it.
okay? So can you repeat what you said in the last 5 seconds? Your screen froze. We couldn't hear
So,
you.
what I'm saying is that in the next 8 to 10
Hmm.
years, we will need to start. This is a decade of delivery. So you will
Hmm.
have to start delivering on all the data that has been built
Hmm.
to a high human potential. And the
Hmm.
next 20 years is going to be about where the human potential is going to be tapped exponentially.
Okay. 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 All right. So next topic is a little generalized, although I think it's very important. Uh, it's mainly for people who are in the recruitment industry. That is, importance of making staffing decisions. So, what do you think are the important staffing decisions that can be useful for this talent shortage, so to speak, that we have these days? Like, as a recruiter, what do you think are the sort of the tips or tricks, if you want to share, that's going to help them recruit better?
Uh, as a recruiter, I think everyone has to learn how they can use technology be savvy about technology usage. Be a adept learner
Okay.
and use technology to the hilt.
Hmm.
To end of the day, the story is all about how
Hmm.
the story is narrated, as they say, by the winner.
Hmm.
So you have to have a lot of conviction in what you're going to be telling your candidate, and
Hmm.
therefore free the time that you have to using the
Hmm.
technology, and then start leveraging that time to have a better candidate connect and provide them with a
Hmm.
candidate experience par excellence. So
Hmm.
that's the second one. The third one is when you look at all these things, uh, as a recruiter, start believing in that talent belongs to the organization, skill belongs to a project. You are hiring
Hmm.
people for
Interesting.
the organization, not for a project. And
Hmm.
skill, as we have spoken earlier, is something that is transient. It gets
Hmm.
obsolete faster. Talent is about temperament, critical thinking, creativity, innovation, all, and your aptitude and your attitude. All put together is the talent that walks in through the door. The skill
Hmm.
is incidentally maybe a Java programmer or a Python programmer. And those
Hmm.
are cyclical. There was a point in the 25 years cycle, if there are people in this call who know that there were times when we had to hire people with COBOL mainframe skills by truckloads in organizations because that was the need of the hour. Today, nobody is talking about COBOL programmers.
Hmm.
While I believe they will come back once again, but that's another conversation topic. But
Yeah.
similarly, you go back and look at it, at no point in time have leaders hired people just for a skill that is a gap
Specific.
in the organization today. So
Hmm.
you have always, when you start looking at it, you need to start looking at when you bring in talent, it's for the future proofing of your organization. As a recruiter, you are the first point of contact, and you therefore represent the organization or the aspirations of the organization to the candidate.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you need to
Uh,
be robust and you need to be the person who is extremely competent about selling your organization's dreams to
hmm.
the candidate.
And also
Uh,
very tech savvy.
they have to be tech savvy, yeah,
Hmm.
be more conversant, and end of the day, for me,
Hmm.
I believe it may be the 100 candidate you are interviewing today, but for the candidate, you are the first person representing the organization.
You're almost like a face of the organization, right? A brand
You are the
ambassador
face
for
of
that
the
matter, right?
you are the
Yeah.
face of the
Brand
organization.
ambassador. Yeah. Yeah. So last but not the least, I want to ask you a few sort of like few pointers or tips and tricks. And first, I want to start with what do you think are the three most important skills that a candidate, considering today's workforce environment or ecosystem, should have? If you can
Ability,
name any three, yeah.
yeah, I think there's demonstrated capabilities around continuous learning.
Okay. So you mean always eager to learn and to evolve and
Rated. So the person, it's not eagerness alone, they should have also invested and delivered that. The second
okay,
one,
okay.
the second one is one is demonstrated learning, continuous
Hmm.
learning. Second thing
Hmm.
is um, ability to work in a very agile, unstructured manner.
What do you mean by that?
You have to be able to work intuitively across teams and be able to do
Okay.
multiple work, learn. Uh, it's pretty much like learn on the job and learn on the fly
On the
and
go, on the go. Okay,
the
okay, okay, okay,
on-demand learning, as you would call it. So that's
okay.
in ability. This is the agility is key here.
Hmm.
And the third one is completely understand. I personally feel uh, they need to be able to fall in love with a problem and solve a problem, not hold tight or dear to a solution that they have identified.
Okay. All right. Very
So
interesting.
that's how I look at it.
Hmm. And like you rightly said some time back, that this is the time where people are leaving jobs, and there's a lot of like sort of change of careers. People are looking into different options. It's not like the old engineer, doctor, and there's now people into podcasting. They're into so many things. So, do you have any pointers for people who, at this point, want a career change? What would you tell them if they want a career change and they're confused? They don't know what to do about it. They're not happy with their jobs, or they want a sort of bump in their career. What would you suggest for them?
I would say follow your passion. Right. Today is
Hmm.
world. Uh, you can make a career if you're a adventure. Uh, Love adrenaline rush. You could make a career out of being a adventure sports
Hmm.
tourist or a guide. A couple of weeks back, I was on a expedition in the northeastern part of India, and I met a couple of people. One
Uh,
of whom is a avid sports photographer. Must be pretty early in the
wow.
career, 21, just about graduated. Been doing sports photography for the last 3 years, and particularly polo, a game that in India we do not have much.
Really,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a very niche sport
Sport for the
for the
rich,
very for the
elite,
not even the rich or the uh,
royal.
privileged people of the world, right? So here's an opportunity the person has been following and seems to be happy in terms of.
Hmm.
I couldn't ask the person, is it lucrative or otherwise, because lucrative is a very subjective yardstick.
Subjective term. Correct. Yeah.
But that's an opportunity that the person has panned out. And similarly, the person I met in the expedition, the expedition's person was somebody who came in from a hospitality industry,
Hmm.
loved going out in the open, driving fast cars, everything. And here's this person who was putting together a very motley crew and getting everyone to believe they have been friends for life in that 10 days span. So this
Wow,
is
that's
a
lovely.
lot of learning and an opportunity that we have. We just haven't even been used to.
Yeah.
And that's to me is an opportunity that resides for anyone to. It's all within our grasp. It's just that we just need to stand up and pull that.
And I believe now more than ever is such a good time to live in when it comes to doing what you really want. Like if you look around yourself, there are careers जो हमने we haven't heard about them like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we didn't even know these names. Like you said, sports, photography, specifically polo, who would have thought? So yeah, that's a very interesting insight. Like follow your passion, I agree. So now we're going to take the questions. I'm going to open the stage for question and answers. So I request the audience to ask their questions, and sir is going to answer you. Just a second. Let me see. Guys, the stage is open for you to ask any questions to sir. So just a second. I think Akshat has written the question here, and they're going to reply.
So,
Okay, so sir, we have a question from Mr. Anonymous. I think is just a guest journey. Anyway, can you explain cross selling?
cross
Sorry,
selling,
my bad, my bad. Cross skilling. Sorry, cross
cross
skilling.
skilling. Now, cross skilling is nothing new, right? There have been you take people who have proficiency in one area,
Hmm.
right, and kind of where they are, their expertise resides, and try to train them in adjacent areas, right?
Hmm.
Case in point, you are looking for people in the IT industry forever with
Hmm.
strong programming knowledge. If I had to look at it today, most of the skills have Java as a base skill.
Hmm.
So that's a core skill that you need to have. And if you're proficient in Java, you probably will pick up something else or a structured language like C. If you're proficient, then you can pick up other areas. If you're
Hmm.
a if you're a functional expert in human capital management, it does not matter whether you're doing SAP implementation or Workday implementation.
Hmm.
Those are skills that are platform specific. So you will be
Hmm.
able to pick up things. It is necessary when we talk about large transactions or where there is a huge skill movement that is happening in organizations. How do you
Right.
actually leverage these people to get cross-skilled and then move on to newer areas? Otherwise, you will be
Hmm.
talking about hiring and firing people, which is not good for an organization. And that's
Hmm.
cross upskilling and cross-skilling.
Okay. Another question: how does reskilling add economic value for employers? It should be. Is it employers or employees? Reskilling add economic
Can
value.
be valuable for both the employer and
Both actually. Yeah. Hmm.
when you're reskilling people or repurposing talent, as we call it,
Hmm.
you are ensuring that the knowledge of the organization stays intact or knowledge of
Okay.
engineers stays intact. The earlier example I gave at the start of this conversation as to people from the hospitality industry moving into running call centers for healthcare organizations during the
Hmm.
pandemic translates into the subject matter expertise of customer interface is intact and what they bring into it. The employer sees value in that, and the speed and the time to market translates into profitability for them or
Hmm.
better utilization of the opportunity.
Okay. Okay. So it can be, like you rightly said, beneficial for both the parties, right?
True.
Right. Moving on. Um, the question is, for small businesses, cost of training slash reskilling can be considerable. How should they cope up with this?
It's a very simple rule that we say, right? If you do not train your people, or I won't use train, if you do not provide opportunities
Hmm.
for people to learn while they are with you, you're going to lose your best people to your competition. And
Hmm.
the people who cannot learn new skills are going to be your star performers, which means you're
Hmm.
looking down the vortex. So the small organization, it does not matter, small or big. It is the intent of the organization that matters. And the intent is to communicate very clearly that learning is continuous and people need to be.
So, as a trainer, as a soft skills trainer, or also as an image consultant, I've noticed that there's this hitch in even the better companies, even the bigger companies. This cost of training, sometimes even they feel training is not necessary. And even the people who take the trainings, I've noticed many times, it's my personal experience. They just take it as, like an activity which they just have to get rid of or get done with. So I think we need also a very big attitudinal change, like
See, that has
mindset
all
change with
changed
respect to.
in the last 5 years. That has gone through a big impact, right? Uh,
Hmm,
the first time was that I saw was in the late 90s, early 2000, when across the organization, everybody had to understand what internet commerce was.
hmm.
E-commerce, as we
Right,
know it today, was
e-commerce.
internet commerce, and not everybody needed to be a programmer or a architect, but you needed
Right.
to know that what was happening, and this was going to change the way in which your life was going. Similarly, today, including my 80-year-old mother, is is very conversant in terms of using her smartphone, whether
Hmm.
it is watching whatever her favorite videos or or doing a video chat with her grandchildren wherever they are,
Or
right?
WhatsApp, Facebook.
WhatsApp, Facebook, Skype, whatever it may be, and that's to the extent where she also keeps on her
Busy,
tablet,
basically.
yeah, on her Kindle, she keeps reading all her books and whatever it is. So the technology savviness is uh, is contagious. So everybody continues to learn, and if you want to stay relevant, if you want to be, no
Mm.
organization, scale or size can stop you from learning.
Right. I'll move to the next one. I think it's very similar to the previous one. It says, how does reskilling workers contribute to the growth of an organization? So I think it's very similar to what you said about adding economic value, right? I
Yeah,
believe, or you want to add something here?
it's the same.
See. Okay. Next, UK has an aging population. What challenge does this pose to the recruiters?
Very simply put, UK and most of Europe, and if we think about talent, talent is really now in the southern hemisphere of the world.
Okay.
And if you were to build a kind of slice and dice it, the southern hemisphere has abundance of talent. That is also the young population now. The relatively young population resides in the Southeast Asian uh,
Correct.
part of the world. It
Like
poses,
example, India. India has
yeah,
65% of people who are between 18 and 35, 45, I believe.
yeah. So leave the rest of it in terms of the other countries, and therefore you're going
Hmm.
to continue to see a lot more work happening on early adoption of automation is going to be happening in the Western world, which
Hmm.
is what we are following and we are seeing.
Hmm.
More of the consumer kind of work is going to move towards the Southern Hemisphere, which is what we are seeing in terms of large services organizations are coming out of India, Vietnam, Indonesia, Hong,
Philippines. Hmm.
Philippines, China, whatever
Hmm.
it may be. And the market for these are also kind of burrowing between all these countries where the population is experimental, and also a stability in terms of management maturity or the product maturity is
Hmm.
what people look at when the adoption is greater in the Western world.
Hmm.
Specifically coming to this question of an aging population in UK, therefore, it has a lot of uh, uh, diverse skill sets that are required, right from caregivers, healthcare givers, to people who are going to be doing a lot of errands or any of it.
Hmm.
For a moment, we say that people are, you're not going to have in UK, one of the popular this thing is Deliveroo, right?
Hmm.
Equivalent of our delivery or whatever it is.
Hmm.
If those people on the motorbikes are going to stop and they're going to become aged population, you probably have to have a completely different legislation about drones coming and dropping your
Right. Innovative solutions, basically. Yeah.
innovative
Right.
solutions.
Right. Hmm.
Uh, Telecommuting may become a way of life.
Correct.
That probably is going to be, and there are, so no nation can say that we will become a ghost town, and therefore you are looking at and more of the population moving in. People are willing to look at immigrants coming in
Yeah,
and
that's what I was gonna say.
relating very
Huh.
culturally into their system. So that's going to throw
Hmm.
up a lot of different opportunities, I would say, not pressure points alone, but different opportunities. And those opportunities will mean that from a talent perspective, you have an opportunity to have multilingual, multicultural, multi-racial workforce that you have truly diverse in nature, and the ability to get them to deliver work.
Great. So before we close, as a last question, what are the benefits of workshop training program or programs to enhance skills of the employees?
What are the benefits of workshop?
Workshop training programs. I guess what the what the audience is trying to ask is, there are small workshops when we have these training sort of like events. So what would be the benefit of having them instead of like hiring a full-fledged trainer or having a full-on L&D department? I guess that's what they're trying to ask.
See, knowledge acquisition comes in two parts. When you go in for whatever is the way in which the knowledge is delivered. Uh, so if I take a very
Hmm.
simple example, all management schools have a similar kind of academic curriculum. The textbooks, if there are any, are
Hmm.
prescriptive in nature, and all of us study the same. Why is it
Hmm.
that people from a certain kind of institution are preferred over people coming from other kind of institutions, at least at the entry level? It's the
Hmm.
cohort that matters, the entry criterion with which you go in. So once again, if you look at these workshops, you will learn from the organization that is delivering the course curriculum. You will also
Hmm.
have to learn from your uh, co-workers and the cohorts and their experiences. Now,
Hmm.
that is what I see as a benefit of any of these things, because not everybody comes from the same organization,
Background.
and not
I
everybody.
completely agree with that. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's an opportunity to learn more about it.
And so lastly, I just want to ask you, just like Prime Talent has a AWS Restart program, um, it is very interesting and sort of like great skill building program for people who want maybe a career change or an upgrade or whatever. Uh, do you think such kind of programs really are going to be important in the present as well, and also in the future, and sort of redefine how we look at career growth and career management?
So that if you really look at it, as I mentioned, you have to have a head start on any kind of capability to
Hmm.
command a premium over the rest of them.
Hmm.
So as we talk about AWS restart, yes, we are seeing that AWS uh, as a skill set will be required more and more, because if more and more programs or projects or
Hmm.
jobs are going to be on the cloud, then you
Hmm.
need people to handle that, and that means
Right.
opportunity. And the expertise that you bring in today will determine will you lead the pack or will you be part
Hmm.
of. So then, not just
Yeah,
with
that makes
AWS,
sense.
but with every other skill also as we go forward, are
Hmm.
you able to identify the right skill sets that are required for
Hmm.
your kind of aspiration? And are you willing to invest it upfront?
All right. Okay. Sir, I have to say, this is the fastest 1 hour and 15 minutes that I've ever that has gone like this. It was a pleasure talking to you. It was a wonderful, wonderful conversation. And I'm sure our audience, they've learned a lot. They've got some great tips, tricks, insights from you, you being the expert. So, before we go, I want to thank all of the audience